Welcome to Colburn's A Serving of Beethoven, Sonatas for Piano and Violin live broadcast. My name is Martin Beaver, and my co-host is Fabio Bidini. As faculty of the Colburn School, it is our pleasure to present to you a Beethoven Piano and Violin Sonata each Thursday at noon. To enhance your listening experience each week, we'll provide a brief introduction covering some background and insights from our personal experiences.
Before we discuss today's work, I want to take a moment to share that the Violin Sonata series is dedicated to a dear friend and supporter of the Colburn School, Warner Henry. Warner was a respected member of the Board of Trustees, and I speak on behalf of myself and Martin when I thank him for his commitment to the school, its students, artists, faculty, staff, audiences, and partners. His presence and his passion for the performing arts will be missed, but not forgotten.
Today, we're going to be broadcasting the first of the 10 sonatas, Opus 12, number 1, in D major. So where to begin? What should we share about our experiences with this piece?
I think what is important for what concerns actually the piano part, there are spots that you can actually recognize even Kreutzer on that piece. It's unbelievable that from number 1 and number 9, actually the personality of the composer, yes, of course, developed, but you can recognize who Beethoven was from day one of his life, no?
Certainly. There's a certain kind of DNA, I would say, that's unmistakable. Yeah? It's interesting that you would draw a parallel with this sonata and the Kreutzer, because, of course, both of these sonatas have second movements that are theme and variation.
Variations, yeah.
They're very, very much similar even in the setup, where you do have the minore variation
exactly
before the last.
Yeah, the structure is very similar. The difficulty for me is always to convey the character of the piece without overdoing it, because especially you are in the very beginning of Beethoven, no? So of course with number 7, number 9, number 10, 8, you have much more space to go deeper and go more passionately. But number 1 is so elegant and so powerful at the same time that for what concerns the piano part it's not that easy actually.
No, in fact, I would draw a parallel from my time in the Tokyo Quartet that actually the Opus 18 quartets, the so-called early Beethoven quartets, were actually pretty thorny in that same way that I would say the Opus 12
Absolutely.
Violin sonatas are. And in fact, when we recorded the Beethoven cycle of quartets, we started with the middle period, the Opus 59s, and only then did we start with the Opus 18s.
And it makes total sense to go in a contrary motion when you record it. When you have such an amount of different periods, with the 32 piano sonatas, I would do exactly the same. I would never start from the first one.
Correct.
You're perfectly right.
Yeah. And so I think what our listeners can look forward to is a fairly, obviously a young Beethoven's work. The sonata, I would say, pretty much from beginning to end is quite ebullient and
very
and optimistic in character. Yeah. So please enjoy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to all of our viewers who tuned in with us today. I'm Lee Chopa, and I'm the Dean of the Colburn Conservatory of Music. And I am so honored to be hosting this discussion with Martin and Fabio to sort of kick off our new lunchtime series of their performances of the Beethoven Violin and Piano Sonatas. They're two incredible artists, and it's always really special to me to recognize their artistry not as master teachers, which is how we interact on a day-to-day basis, but also just watch and listen and talk to them as performers first and foremost. Martin joined the Colburn faculty in 2013. At the time, he was both a violin teacher and co-director of our chamber music program, and now he is focusing on his violin studio to the joy of his students, though he still plays an extremely active role as a chamber music coach. Fabio joined our faculty just 2 years later in 2015 as our Colburn Grigger piano chair, coming to California after many years in Berlin. And again, just before we start this afternoon, I want to take a moment just to say how much all of us at Colburn are going to miss Warner Henry. We want to thank him for his unwavering support, especially for our Colburn Chamber Music Society. And personally, I'm going to miss him, seeing him at the concerts and his joy, his such joy in chamber music in particular. And I'm so grateful that our wonderful chamber music series that we did last fall of the complete Beethoven quartets was something that he was able to see and participate in. So Warner, you're going to be very deeply missed by all of us at Colburn.
Hear, hear.
So we actually took some questions for this Q&A, and we got some great questions about sort of the challenges of what's going on, new opportunities, and also sort of how the two of you put all of this together. So I'm going to start off with sort of one of my interests in actually looking at these sonatas, which is that in the original score, they actually said that they were for the forte piano and a violin, rather than the other way around, even though we call them now the violin sonatas. And I love that sort of flipping on its head, the way we sort of think of like it's the violinist with an accompanist. And I'd love to hear the two of you sort of talk about how do you approach preparing a sonata like this as a duo? Who's the leader in terms of musical ideas?
Well, I would say that Beethoven is the leader, and we both follow as dutifully as we can. Yes, to go even further to your point, Lee, I believe in one of the editions of the Kreutzer Sonata, the violin is even referred to as obbligato. So that further emphasizes Beethoven's definite tilt towards the piano, of course, the forte piano, yeah? Or pianoforte, eventually.
Well, I would say that at that time things were completely different, and writing these pieces with the accompaniment of a violin, it's absolutely ridiculous, especially today. It's a constant dialogue between piano and violin. You can't actually make a choice which instrument is more important or another. Again, as Martin said, the most important thing is to have the same idea, the same conception, and playing in a way that is stylistically respecting and conveying the message of Beethoven. So Beethoven is the boss.
I love that. So you two did this complete series in Zipper Hall just this past February, which was absolutely unbelievable and some of the most stunning musical moments as an audience member that I've had. How is recording different? So we asked you to come in and do this for this purpose. How is it different to prepare a recording versus preparing live?
Well, I would say that this particular project, well, first of all, speaking personally, it gave me a real sense of purpose during, let's face it, a rather bleak kind of time. And the ability to have an artistic outlet like this and to prepare these sonatas with a wonderful artist like Fabio, it was a real privilege and an honor for me. I would say that this was a little bit of a hybrid in terms of approaching it, simply because these were recording sessions. I'm not used to wearing concert clothes in a recording session, though. I think the aspect of having a video camera there as well, it was a little bit of a balancing act, I would say, certainly personally speaking, to make it seem as much as a performance, even with the absence of any kind of audience. Also, when one commits something to recording, you almost feel like the microphones are an additional instrument, and you play with them. So in fact, I'm not sure how Fabio felt, but I certainly felt during the sessions that I was playing differently than I would perhaps in a live performance, in order to give as much of a complete spectrum for the recorded sound. So it was very much for me a balancing act.
Yeah, the same goes for me. A live performance, you're living the moment, and in the recording always stays. So it stays forever. So we need to be very, very careful in balancing everything. And the microphones are the ears no longer of the public in the hall, but the microphones are the ears of the world. So we need to be very, very much on top of everything. And yeah, these are real recording sessions. And as tiring and demanding that it was, also enriched me personally in an unbelievable way to be able to do all this repertoire twice in a completely different way, because again, once we have the public, so we are living the moment, and the other time we have the microphones and we are living the rest of the life.
Absolutely. So I think we hope that we managed to still capture the freshness of a live performance to some degree.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how you decide that this is the right recording. You know, a live performance, you have this idea, you know that it's not going to be perfect, and you're looking for it to be the right feeling, that you know what a successful performance isn't necessarily that every single note is exactly the way you planned. You know, what is a successful recording? You have this opportunity. I suppose you could record it as many times as it takes for every single note to be perfect. But is that actually going to be the best recording?
Well, not necessarily. I think that Fabio and I are both experienced enough at recording sessions that you know that after a certain time of doing take after take after take and hoping that is going to be, you know, the holy grail of this particular movement, let's say, that really you have to kind of choose a bass take that conveys your musical ideas and hopefully the spirit of the piece in the most effective way. And then, you know, through the magic of whatever happens behind the scenes, we're able to make little adjustments here and there as need be.
The magic behind the scenes, yes.
Yes, indeed.
I'm curious, this must be something that you're both thinking about for your students as well, that this is that, you know, due to being in a pandemic and not being able to be in person, that this is making a recording is maybe a whole other craft that musicians now need to learn.
Yes, indeed. Actually, I would throw this one over to Fabio because ever since he joined us at Colburn, he's demonstrated through work with us, also with our students, with our quartet in residence, the Piano Quartet. Fabio has very generously given his time and expertise and even helped with some equipment to make recordings. And it's amazing what this man knows about the recorded sound.
Now, I find it very important that today in 2020 we are in the need of knowing what to do with the technical equipment. Recording companies are very difficult to be approached. Doesn't exist any longer the great career of 50, 60 years ago that your name is Michelangelo and the recording company is making you be the alien in the world. It doesn't exist anything like that. So today everything is much more personalized. Everything is much more independent. So we have to be able to produce something on a great level because it must be always there. We need to be able to produce something by ourselves constantly, not only for us as artists, but also for our students in this case, because without this kind of help, it's not going to happen for the students. So it's very important.
Definitely something we will be thinking about a lot this year, I think. Yeah. So I have a great question from one of our viewers, which is a little bit related to teaching, which is to ask both of you, what are you looking for in a student? And actually, I love this because it's a little bit related to what we just talked about in recording, which is what combination of musical depth and technical capability in an imperfect world is acceptable to you? So you both have to answer that one.
Maestro, please.
Go ahead.
Fabio, you go first.
Okay. We are looking for the imperfect person. In other words, you cannot, most of the times, you cannot split the person from the music. And music, it means the musicality, not only that, but the experience and the soul, the sensitivity of the soul of a person. And the music is automatically including the technical aspect of the instrumental aspect. So that doesn't mean that we don't make mistakes. We do make mistakes also, because the audition process, it's kind of long, difficult, but at the same time it's very short, because you have a pre-selection video, and then out of 200 videos that you receive, you need to invite maybe 20, 30 people to the live audition. The live audition is playing 10 minutes and 5 minutes talking. So in this total of 15 minutes, you need to understand who you actually will work with for the rest of the 2 or 3 or 4, 5, 8 years of your life. So better you be good in choosing, and also better to be also lucky, because honestly, it's not only a matter of, many times there are students that they are showing up and they are perfectly prepared for the audition and they know perfectly how to behave. And then as soon as the school starts, they reveal to be totally different. So we need to be able to cope with that. The musical aspect and the sensitivity is priority from my point of view, because the technical aspect, you can always build it up with good teaching. You can always improve. And also, it's not true that if the more you practice, the more you get better. Practice makes permanent, it doesn't make you better. So you need to practice in the right way.
Very well said. What can I add to this? Yes, I would say that ideally speaking, of course, everybody would love to have students with a so-called perfect technique. Of course, this is a rare thing, I would say. What I look for in a student is a sense that there is a genuine appreciation for artistry, a genuine desire for that kind of expression. Over the years of being a teacher, you do learn to spot the signs, even in, let's say, a candidate whose level is not perhaps the most advanced, but you learn to see the signs of potential, both technically and musically speaking. Ideally, I want to work with people from whom I can learn, both artistically and technically speaking. I think that's tremendously important. And if you ask a lot of my students, they will tell you that many times I say, well, that's a great fingering that I hadn't thought of. Can I steal it from you? So, of course, I'm of a certain age now. I have a certain wealth of experience, both in life and artistically speaking, which I'm seeking to share with my students, and not only that, but also to imbue in them a sense of a sense of inquisition, a sense of a pioneering spirit, to want to go further and go deeper into this music that we all love.
Well, now, since you said so many wonderful things, Martin, I actually have a specific question that's for you from one of our viewers, which relates so perfectly to what you said, but maybe as asking you to be more specific.
Okay.
What kind of advice would you give to a young violinist, so one who's sort of a young teenager who is very musical but needs to improve his technique and probably is not spending, the 5 or 6 hours a day on the violin that our conservatory students do?
It's interesting. I had a lesson with an incoming student just this morning from Montreal, and we were talking about that kind of thing and how to apportion practice time. I'd say if there was limited time, of course, the priority should be to play scales and arpeggios. I'm sorry to say it, but everybody has to take that medicine. Scales and arpeggios, and quite frankly, in this day and age, I hear of fewer and fewer students that have really gone through the progression of etudes that I remember having to do as a youngster. And I would say that there's a great wealth of etudes, let's say, from well, Kreutzer is arguably the most famous, and who one of my teachers, Joseph Gingold, used to refer to as the violinist's Bible, because basically pretty much every element of violin technique is covered in the 42 etudes. So I would say concentrate on scales and Kreutzer. And I would say in this day and age also, when we have such a wealth of videos, listen a lot to violinists of today, listen a lot to violinists of yesteryear, you know, the greats of the past. We have a wonderful wealth of recordings that we can hear that go back as far, let's say, as Sarasate and Joachim, violinists like that. So I would take every advantage and really take advantage of living in this age of great information.
Yeah, YouTube, an incredible resource. Astonishing. So you taught a lesson this morning because we started our semester yesterday. So here we are in fall 2020 in the middle of a pandemic, and Colburn made the decision earlier in the summer that we're going to teach entirely online to start off the fall. So I'm curious for both of you, what's it been like for you to teach online and thinking ahead to teaching online this semester? And besides the fact that I'm pretty sure both of you, yes, I'm just putting it out there, you're completely free to say you hate it, because that probably is the thing that I hear the most.
Well, it's not true that I hate it.
Okay.
It's not true that I love it. It is a wonderful alternative to the times that we are living on. Has its limitation, has its advantages. We can literally teach all over the planet anytime, anytime for the students. So it means that we are the one to actually adjust. So, but it's a learning process, not only for the students, but also for the teachers, because it's a completely different way to teach. Independently, if you have a wonderful equipment, as I do, as Colburn has, and I'm sure all my faculty colleagues, they have, but it's a completely different way to teach. Students, they need to learn, and since they're young, they might be aware of that or not, but they have the capabilities to understand exactly what we mean and what we want and what we ask them. So it doesn't mean that it's replacing the in-person. It means that it's a wonderful way to move forward until the day that we will be back in person.
Extremely well said. Yes, I would echo Fabio's sentiments that perhaps this is not my most favorite way to have a lesson with a student. But it's really amazing that we have this option. And I would say that had this pandemic occurred, let's say even 10 years ago, it would have been a very, very different story for us all. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember staying once at Pinchas Zuckerman's house when he was in Ottawa, and he showed me a video of an experimental kind of video conferencing lesson that he had in Minneapolis in the early '80s. And of course, there was dreadful lag. The sound quality was terrible. But when I remember seeing that video, and I think where we are now with the amazingly high quality of sound and video, it's really quite incredible. And I know that Pincus has been a pioneer of this sort of thing for many years. And now, of course, by necessity, one could say it's now commonplace.
Absolutely. And actually, to my great astonishment, from March to August, the technology has probably leapt forward easily a decade. Things that we probably would have said were impossible, people are figuring out. I think the one thing that still is the biggest challenge is playing together over the internet, that you wouldn't have been able to if you two were trying to do this in two different places, that there would have been a time lag, that it's impossible to completely sync up because of distance. But it's pretty impressive where we got to now from where we started in March, when we actually had to send all of the students home, maybe with the exception of Fabio, because Fabio has had this figured out for quite a long time. And Fabio, you might not have actually changed anything.
I didn't change much. Let's put it like that. I didn't change much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say the distance that we had on stage in Zipper Hall recording these sonatas seemed like a great one. Of course, we were mandated to be 6 feet apart, which we religiously stuck to. So, but I can't imagine trying to piece something together. I mean, there have been some impressive projects that I've seen and heard, but the very idea of chamber music is sadly not yet so compatible with Zoom or what have you.
Well, give them another few months. Let's have that discussion again in December. Indeed. See who's figured out what. So I would love to go back to the music, just sort of as we come to the close of our half hour. And Martin and I were talking about this for a minute before we started this broadcast. So Colburn just finished this wonderful lunchtime series of all the complete cycle of Beethoven quartets that were done last October. And it was amazing actually for me to hear it live and then to hear the recordings again and to hear this sort of evolution of his writing, which was really just, it's beautiful to hear and hear how music changed. So I'm curious, you started with number one and you talked about that a little bit as before we started the performance. So how did you experience his evolution as a composer now that you put all these recordings together in such a short period of time? What was that like for both of you in terms of sort of going from the beginning to the end of these sonatas?
Well, I mean, it's quite a journey. Obviously, you can chart through the 14 years between number one and number 10. You can chart a huge development, I would say. It's funny for me as an ex-quartet player to look at it though and think, well, that's fine, but that only gets you to Beethoven's middle period, basically, and that actually the period over which the quartets was written was twice as long, literally 28 years. So of course there, I would say the difference between the Opus 18 quartets and the late quartets of Beethoven, it's sort of it's more night and day, I would say. Mm-hmm. Although certainly when you go even between the C minor number 7 and the Kreutzer sonatas and number 10, there is actually quite a world of difference between the two. And with number 10, you're feeling already expansiveness, I think that you would see further develop in the late quartets and later piano sonatas.
Yeah, I totally.
Fabio,
Sorry.
I was just going to say, so this is not true though for the piano sonatas, because Beethoven, as a pianist, the sonatas did span his whole lifetime.
Yeah, basically with the piano sonatas, we are including all the violin sonatas and the quartets together, and actually the symphonies. So because we are getting to Opus 111 as the last one, and he's reaching dimensions harmonically and philosophical and even religious that they are absolutely out of this world. Considering on top that this man couldn't really hear very well, the geniality of what he heard inside himself and what he was searching through the music, searching to be in contact with the afterlife and searching to understand what the afterlife would have been. It's absolutely amazing. But also, as Martin said, our number 10 sonata is very, very, very close to that kind of level. Harmonically is a little bit more traditional, conservative, let's say, but the character is absolutely there already of Opus 111 or 120. So this is already something unbelievable. Yeah.
So tell us what's coming up with the next 9. What should we be listening for? Maybe tell us which ones are your favorites. Do you have favorites? Can you have favorites when you're choosing among Beethoven works?
Not really. I mean, not for personally speaking, I can't really say that. I used to get the question all the time, which is your favorite Beethoven quartet? And in that case, I would have to say, if I have to choose a favorite, it would be Opus 132. But the sonatas, I can't really say that there's a favorite. I have a soft spot for number 6. Again, it's very esoteric, and one doesn't hear it very often. It's actually a very difficult sonata to play, but I find it very, very musically rewarding in that sense. Not that the other ones aren't, of course, but in a way, maybe I feel like I should fight for the underdog, as it were.
Fabio, do you have a favorite out of the 10?
It is very difficult to say. Personally, not. The favorite one is the one that I'm playing right that moment, because it's so genius. It's so, every sonata is also so different from another, and the character and the emotion, the anger that he also puts there, the passion, this kind of paradise moments that pretty much in every sonata are there, especially in the second thematic lines. It makes it so complete experience. It becomes a life experience. It's not only a musical experience. And sonata number 3, for instance, that many pianists they hate to play because it is really terribly difficult. I just love it. That doesn't mean that I like to suffer. No, I don't. But I just love it.
It was actually kind of neat during our rehearsals, both for the live series in February and for these recordings. Every so often, we would come to the end of a movement and we would just look at each other, and one of us would say, "Wow, this is just the greatest music."
Yeah. and so also the rehearsal time between us has been so easy, no? What do you think? I mean, it's
absolutely,
don't speak much, just read. It's an educational process. You just read, you read well, you play it, and it's simply there. It's magic,
we listen a lot. It's like, of course, the relationship that I have with Clive Greensmith, my colleague from the Tokyo Quartet for many years. When we play now in the Montrose Trio or in any chamber group, basically a look will suffice or listening to a particular turn of phrase, we don't really have to discuss much. And I'm very happy that Fabio and I share a similar kind of collaborative spirit.
Yeah.
Well, it's so obvious. I mean, I saw it on stage in person where you could just feel that sort of vibration going back and forth between the two of you. And I'll be looking for that very carefully in the videos. I know it'll be harder to see. So in closing, let's play Genius Bar a little bit. So you've done, we're going to all listen to these wonderful series of 10 over the next few weeks. But maybe the two of you could each tell us, so pick another sonata maybe that we should be listening to beyond Beethoven. What would you say? Listen to this because this was important. This, just like the evolution of the string quartets in Beethoven, this piece maybe marked something that was an evolution in music.
Oh, wow.
Surprise question.
A little broad-sided. My goodness. Wow. So
It has to be piano and violin, yeah?
No, actually, this is like another. It doesn't have to. You can go from from a documentary to a sci-fi fantasy movie if you want. Tell us where you would go from here.
Wow. That's actually a very difficult question to ask. It seems like, Beethoven got it pretty right with these 10 sonatas.
It is pretty right.
Think of it this way. We just finished the series. There's none left, right? We finished it. We finished the 10. Game of Thrones is over. What do I watch next?
The cello and piano sonatas.
Oh.
I would say. I mean, that would be the Beethoven. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Because there again, you find a wonderful variety, and you can also see a developmental arc within those pieces. Wonderful pieces. I hope they will be forthcoming. That has nothing to do with me. But.
Hint, hint, right? Clive, maybe Clive is watching.
Let's hope so.
And certainly I've seen Clive and Fabio have done a couple of recitals here on campus together. So those have been quite extraordinary as well. So I thought one of you was going to choose the Franck Sonata, but maybe that was just me.
Well, I didn't get to speak yet.
Oh, Fabio, what did you pick?
No, the Franck Sonata, actually, it is an incredibly important piece. Also, you can do it with the violin, you can do it with cello. You cannot do it only with the piano. And but harmonically and stylistically, Franck is, with that sonata, I think, is marking a line that goes from romantic to post-romantic music. Which I find it extremely important. Another sonata that could be very important for the pianistic aspect, especially, is the Rachmaninoff cello sonata, which I adore with all my heart. Unplayable, but incredibly difficult.
Not for you.
Well, for the pianist, is incredibly difficult, but I adore it with all my heart, and what he's able to express musically is absolutely untouchable. But I always go back to the same composer when we speak about chamber music. I cannot forget Brahms. And Brahms, the 3 violin sonatas and the 2 cello sonatas, and all the trios, quartet, and the quintet is absolutely something that is the chamber music in person for me. So.
Well, and Fabio, your recording of the second trio, which I know we can argue which trio we like best, but the second Brahms trio is just glorious. So I hope that, once we finish these 10, we've given our viewers some options of what to listen to next. Well, thank you both so much for an extraordinary performance, for putting this whole series together for us, for your time and your artistry and a great discussion. So I hope that you, all of you, our viewers, will join us again every week at noon on our Facebook page as we continue with Fabio and Martin in this Beethoven series. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having us here.